All right, cool. So, thank you all for attending today for the advisory council meeting. Um, we will, I think today's meeting is going to be largely an update-centric one, but there are a couple of questions and discussion points that we have for the council that I would like feedback on and direction on. So we will kind of proceed from there. So as you can see, here is the agenda as it was posted. Due to some events that happened recent last couple of days, there's kind of like a little bonus agenda item in here. That is an update, but I just wanted to make sure that you guys are all well aware of what's going on. And with that, we can kind of go quickly through the introductions and attendance. So as you see your name in order, just kind of say who you are and who was your appointing body. So I'm Fredo Herrera, and with OPM, I'm the Geographic Information Officer, and Scott Gall is currently on vacation, so he will not be here.
All right. My name is Stuart Deland, CTD.
Liz indicated that she was not going to be able to attend, so I can go ahead.
Dan Chaya, DESPP.
You. Don't see Gary on the call, but we can go ahead.
Eric Snowden, Capital Region Council of Governments.
Mark Hoover, MetroCog.
John, I see you here.
He was frozen a bit earlier. I don't know if he might be having a bandwidth issue, possibly.
All right. Well, I know he's here, so we'll let him introduce himself later. Tracy.
Hi, this is Tracy, CCM.
Emily Wilson, Yukon.
Pete St. Perry, United Illuminating.
Do not see Meg on the call. All right. So thank you all for attending. And so I don't think, unless any of the council members have any kind of administration things that they would like to do, start any working group or anything like that, please, let me know now. And we will hold public comment towards the end. After we've kind of discussed all of the things. I think there's going to be a lot of topics that we're going through today. First and foremost is a quick update of the legislative session this year. I just wanted to kind of cover this in this meeting because there were a number of GIS related bills that were kind of in various states of proposed. First, I want to cover the ones that did pass. So as part of Senate Bill 9, the resiliency bill, we will be collecting bridge and culvert data from the municipalities beginning in May of 2028. Carl will speak a little bit more as to kind of what efforts we're going to undertake to kind of come up with the way in which we do that. But there are, as our hope is to do it in a similar way to the way we do it with the parcels, and the way we intend to do it with the addresses at some future point. And just, but we, because OPM, DEEP, and DOT are specifically named in the statute as the kind of receiving and governing bodies for this particular data collection, we will be starting with a group with those folks and kind of expanding it to the council for kind of input and approval. The DOT also suggested and passed a revision to the state coordinate system language, mainly to account for the new NSRS and new updated coordinate state plane coordinate system as being proposed by the National Geodetic Survey. The key difference here and the thing that I think we're both DOT and I are very proud of is that we were able to do is we changed the language so that when NGS produces an update, DOT's it has the job to review that and adopt and accept that and make that the authoritative coordinate system for the state. But then when we say as to recommendations for use, we basically say everyone should produce mapping in that coordinate system. And if you have a good reason not to, you need to describe that reason and also describe the coordinate system that you are using for that data set in its metadata. So basically, if the preference is to use the coordinate state plane coordinate system. But if you have a good reason to make it say Web Mercator or something else altogether, then just explain yourself and say what that coordinate system is so that people understand what they're looking at and when they are using and interpreting that data. And then finally, as far as the things that passed on the GIS front is in the bonding bill, there were $5 million proposed for flood and resilience mapping. Once again, Carl has the unenviable task of kind of figuring out what that plan looks like, and in conjunction with the policy folks here at OPM to kind of figure out how to, like, what does that look like? How do we go about spending that money, and what kind of data products and information are we going to produce as a result? So I will let Carl talk a little bit more about that later. So the things that did not pass, we did have a proposal in conjunction with the Intergovernmental Policy and Planning Division from OPM to change the date of the parcel collection from May 1st to be September 1st. That did not pass. It is kind of unclear to me why. What I've heard is that there were other provisions of that bill that were unfavorable, and we were unsuccessful in kind of separating this kind of minor technical change out into something else. So basically, we'll just have to try again next year, and for next year's collection, it'll still be May 1st. There was one other bill that we did have some interaction with that we didn't put here necessarily because it wasn't something that we were supporting or trying to do. But there was an indoor mapping legislation proposal to kind of enforce basically just say that we have to map the insides of schools and other kind of public facilities. While that is not necessarily the worst idea in the world to do, the way in which that particular bill was written, there was a lot of language in there that really belonged more in an RFP. So we wrote in testimony to oppose that bill on a technical front, and then pass that information along to the legislative folks in OPM, and also the legislative folks at the governor's office. And the official stance from the governor's office was to oppose that particular bill on both technical and fiscal fronts. So that one did not pass as well. It's not mentioned here, but it was something that did happen that we did have to kind of, I don't want to say intervene, but just kind of weigh in on as it was coming. It was one of those things that kind of came up quickly on the back of an actual NISJIC meeting, because we were informed while there that this was happening. So we kind of had to react to that one fairly quickly and write testimony in a hurry before it made it to committee. As you can see here, there are some other topics that were that had bills that passed and did not pass that were related to the larger DAPA division kind of interests and focus. I left them in there, so if any of you are interested in any of those, you can feel free to kind of ask questions or kind of follow up with us on any of those as they pertain to your interests. I will, before we dig into kind of some of the priority topics and working group updates, we'll pause here for any questions from the council on any of these legislations that did and did not pass. All righty, that was pretty straightforward. We will now move on to the priority topics. And I believe we have Carl up first to talk about some of the work that he's been doing. So go ahead,
Okay.
I'll move the slides for you.
Okay, thanks, Alfredo. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad you're here. First couple items we'll discuss is coming working groups. The first one is a water resource working group that'll be interagency. Dieva Lambert, who many of you know, and I have been working together for the last several months, almost a year, on various aspects of water resources having to do with 3DHP. Alfredo mentioned more about this, but there was we had a DCA with USGS that we were hoping to work with the folks in New England to get approval for new data sets. Alfredo will talk more about that, but that did not go through. We did, however, thanks to Joanna upstairs, get some funding for flood and resiliency mapping through a bonding in 7288. And so because we have some funding and we have badly dated water resource information, Dieva and I are going to kick off a group that'll start working on basically creating a underlying schema and guidelines for what the future of Connecticut's water resources data looks like. It'll be a little broader than initially thought. It'll be focused on water resources and climate resiliency because of the bonding, but the idea is that there's a lot of overlap, so we feel like it's a good time to get started. That should begin later this month. Alfredo, next slide. Oh, sorry, you wanted to say something else too about that? Gotta mute.
I am indeed muted, yes. Sorry about that. So as Carl mentioned, we did put in a DCA to USGS to have cooperative funding with USGS, and this was an effort. I believe we've mentioned it in this forum before. It was an effort with most of our New England partner New England states of Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, and Maine. It was a pretty strong proposal. They were USGS was very excited for us to have put in this proposal. But due to the fiscal uncertainty and their current budget still being kind of mostly locked up, and the parts that were not, so I guess there were kind of two things that happened. One is they have a lot of funding that was pre-allocated through congressionally directed spending in certain regions, specifically the Great Lakes, and I believe there was some in California as well, that in kind of specifically targeted areas. And those were, so what happens is they have to spend that money all the way until completion, until those projects are completed to 100%. They cannot divert any of those funds elsewhere. So they just don't have access to those funds to do something new outside of those areas. That was kind of a point of consternation for the program director that I spoke to the other day, because she kind of called to kind of explain the situation. So really where they are is they technically have the money allocated for our portion of this project. What ended up happening is because while Congress has approved those funds, they have not gotten the vault unlocked to actually spend them from the White House. So because that is the case, and the deadlines for the fiscal year were approaching, Susan Buto, who's the program director for 3DHP, decided to basically just call it and say we are not recommending this for funding because we just don't know. They could turn around and unlock the funds tomorrow, and if that's the case, then I'm sure we'll get a call. But short of that, if we tried to wait and wait and wait, there was just not going to be enough time to execute the necessary agreements to get it done within the timeframes agreed upon. So she encouraged us to keep trying. So our intent is to try and submit another DCA in the upcoming fiscal year. But the good news is that the one state that did not participate in the first round seems more than ready to participate. So presumably the next application will include New Hampshire. And in the intervening time since, we have also added New York as an interested party. So we may actually end up having the entire Northeast hat of America submitting a single DCA proposal for hydrography cooperative funding for the next year. So we will see how it goes. We're going to keep pushing. We're going to keep trying. And in the meantime, we are still working on getting our data, our LiDAR data integrated and adopted through the 3-DEP program with USGS. So it will be ready to go once we get the green light to do the 3D HP projects. We've spoke to Dewberry and they're more than happy to continue doing the corrections for USGS. So it's a matter of just kind of moving forward. So that was the update on that. All right. Here's the next slide for you, Carl.
Okay. As many of you remember, last August we had the August into October, even into early November, there was wildfires at in Berlin and all over the state for that matter. The fire that you see the picture of there, that burned for a very long time. We had requests for support to help DEEP and emergency management folks acquire data for the data, their day-to-day mapping. We had been talking about this internally. We realized that this is a gap in our system. So what we'd like to do is get together a work group, and this one will kick off in early July, to bring together several of the key state agencies. So if the first, with the first goal of talking about how to get a basic set of data out as fast as possible for emergency situations, but really the long-term goal is to figure out how to plan, cooperate, and address issues related to emergency management so that we have a clear workflow in when emergencies happen, because obviously you cannot do this at the last minute effectively and efficiently. So that's I'm pleased to see that going forward, and hopefully this will improve our statewide process for emergency management work. Next slide, Alfredo. As many of you know, we had a Act Pass 25-33 that, and Alfredo mentioned that there are culverts and bridges will be required to be submitted through geospatial data. We think that there will be the need for a work group to manage this as a separate entity, because it has a lot of the components of these larger issues like water and impervious cover. We have until the 2028 to get this started, but it should be going sooner. The expectation is that ourselves, DOT and DEEP will work together to create an initial framework for this work, and we'll build off of what DOT and maybe the feds have going forward, and hopefully get a plan in place with guidelines so that we can have an effective and efficient process near the beginning of 2028 as we get moving forward with this. Next slide. Some minor updates on imagery and LiDAR. Next slide. So we have been working on getting impervious cover at the site level for the entire state through the vendor Ecopia. They are making significant progress. The expected delivery date is sometime by the end of the month for an initial pilot. Most issues have been resolved. One small one was the classification of pavement and golf courses. You call it a sidewalk or you call it pavement. They had a label of sidewalks. So we're going to go with pavement. 2 groups of deliverables are expected. And one is things like driveways, roads, and sidewalks, the classic impervious cover, and the other is a bunch of pavement marking and transportation marking extractions, which should be incredibly useful for DOT and the local towns. Critical operational goals coming up are going to be, first is the review of the data, whether it's a QA/QC process, for approval, and then we will have make web services of these impervious cover components based on the most important priorities. So we'll start with the roads and sidewalks and expand our way out after to the less significant ones as we progress and get stuff online. Next slide. Here's an early pilot example from New Haven that's showing the level of detail. You can see that things like sidewalks, even in front of buildings, are explicitly rendered. Building footprints. The cool thing and amazing thing about this AI land cover extraction process is that each of these will have a land cover use attribute on it. So right now, this kind of looks like it all runs together with the same attribute. That's in fact not the case. They have at least 15 or 20 different land cover categories, including very hard to divide ones like paved and unpaved road and some other similar classic land cover problems. So it's going to be very exciting. It's going to be across the entire state. It's going to be a wonderful product. So I think it's a great win for the state to get this. Next slide.
Yeah, one thing. So one of the things that Acopia did mention is, because of the extra time it took for us to approve the subcontract, there were some additional kind of base products that they now provide, and they asked us to kind of approve that we wanted these additional things at no additional charge, which of course we did. But one of them was of particular interest, and that is the differentiation between an intersection and a road segment as far as pavement is concerned. So one of the things that we will be getting is a bounding box for each intersection with its own set of criteria and kind of definitions. But after seeing some of the examples from Ecopia as to what that would look like, it looks like it would be very useful in kind of differentiating between intersections and intermediary roadways. So I just wanted to highlight that as a part of this. That was kind of a bonus that we might not have gotten had our contracts gone through faster.
Next slide.
Yeah.
Okay. And many of you will remember that we had Durga Joshi as an intern from UConn. He works with Chandi Watharana, and he is now on to working at a regional planning agency doing remote sensing in Houston, which we're very happy for him. But he did deliver 3 vegetation rasters for us that are covering the entire state. These are 2-meter products. They are canopy height model, which is simple to understand. It's basically the height of the canopy from the ground. So you have a complete raster of all of the trees across the entire state. You have this thing called foliage height diversity, which basically is a metric that describes the vertical structure of the canopy. So if you have one value is different if you have a big tree with nothing underneath, and you got a different value and more diversity if you have understory. So it's it can be used for ecological evaluation. And the final one is a plant area index, which is basically a metric of the amount of green leaf material in the canopy, and it's used for seasonal change factors and ecological analyses. So we're going to have those. Very happy to see them, and it'll be a nice complement to the impervious cover data. So we'll have a variety of site level land cover information that we can use for different projects going forward. Next slide. Wanted to mention we're getting close enough to the next flight that we'll have a kickoff meeting in September and a flight in the spring of 2026. This is just a tease, but it is on the calendar and it will be something that will be happening. Next slide. Switching to another major topic. This is about the annual update of the strategic plan. You all have seen a draft. I sent that out earlier in the spring. We had very good comments from members. The most important comments were regarding linking the successes and achievements to the strategic plan and the specific goals. And so I took those comments, I did a substantial rewrite around all the comments. Last week, I sent through Alfredo a memo regarding the updated version with the updated draft. Some critical updates were incorporated into that new draft. Next slide, please. These adjustments basically consist of two things. The first one was that I reworked this kind of overall list of objectives with scoring. Before I had separated them out, I combined them and then included things that were finished and unfinished. The progress are the items that we had successfully achieved or moved ahead on, and then a list of things that were incomplete or unfinished. So this is much more operationally oriented in this document. You have an objective, you've got an evaluation of the quality, you've got where we stand, and then what things we need to finish. So it's much more closely tied to the full strategic planning process. A few of you were, really thought it was really important to link the operational work with the larger strategic plan, which I think was the right call. In addition, I summarized the adjustments in a simpler format and tied them back into the kind of the original geospatial strategic plan, so that you have an achievement or a thing that we progressed on, you have a location in the strategic plan that it points towards. I think it's more effective, I think it's simpler, and I think it's easier to follow. Hopefully you folks agree when you get a chance to look at it. Next slide. Again, the draft was sent last week. Please provide any comments by July 10th. We would like to have a vote for approval at the next meeting, which is in late August. And with that, if anyone has any specific questions about the document or changes or things that you want more clarification about, please ask.
Carl, I mean, reviewing it, I just wanted to comment that, this version of the update was, I thought it was a lot better quality. I mean, I thought it was the way it was organized was very clear, going through like the different grades and everything like that. I know that was some of my comments on that first one, but I thought this was a great improvement. And I don't know if we could vote to approve it now or if we need to wait to August, or what other council members feel like. I don't know if people need more time to review it, or what the general consensus is among everybody.
So I leave it to the council members. Would you guys be comfortable voting to approve this now?
I actually don't believe I received a copy of this,
Oh, no.
unless I missed the email completely.
Okay. I will make sure that you receive a copy.
Okay.
And I guess in light of that, maybe we will hold off and want to make sure everybody has an opportunity to actually read the thing before they say yay or nay, or you could choose to abstain if you like, if we still want to go ahead with the vote. I'll leave that up to the council members.
I'll double check right now.
Is there any particular urgency to adopting it now? And I also think it looks great, but if is there a problem with waiting a little bit?
There's not.
I will. There's no problem with waiting. All I will say is that we are, getting through halfway through the year. It would be, nice to get it wrapped up, but it's, completely your decision as the council or the committee to evaluate the progress. And the intention was that the next meeting would be the vote. So this is not a forced march for today at all.
So is this not operating on the state fiscal year, like the update? Oh no.
Nope.
Okay.
We are on our own cycle.
Okay.
Yeah, there's no statutory requirement for a finished time, which is both good and bad.
Okay. Because it says 2024, 2025 on the cover. My just thought was that we could just make it follow the state calendar just for simplicity and stuff going forward. Anyway.
I believe we have to do our next council meeting would be in August. I don't know. And that's when we would have the vote. Is that acceptable to everyone to have the vote then and just kind of call it that?
Yeah, it's fine with me.
Yeah, that's fine.
Then we will leave it to you. I will make sure that Tracy gets a copy. Um, and we will plan to kind of have some minimal discussion or as much discussion as you would like at the next meeting and then vote to approve.
Operator, again, just want to mention one more thing. Please send any comments by that week of July 10th so that we can have the document, whatever additional comments are, can have those cleared up so that when the next council meeting comes, we can have those issues addressed and hopefully we can get an approval and move on.
That sounds great. Thank you. Any other questions on any of the things that Carl covered? All right, hearing none, I will move on to the next topic. So contours. We have, after much consternation and work and effort on Leah's part, created a vector tile of the 1 foot contours for the entire state. They are now available on the geodata portal. As you can see from that ridiculous number there are nearly 20 million features in this data set. The vector tiles are, what you expect in terms of performance. They are super snappy. They are visually great, especially compared to, like, say, the older kind of image tile caches. You don't get any of that kind of fuzziness because it's a vector. Those are working really, really well. There are a couple of limitations with it, and they are kind of a result of the preparation necessary to make them into a vector tile cache. And that the first and foremost is the fact that they have to be in Web Mercator projection. The vector tiles will only allow, when you're preparing the vector tiles for publication, they only let you do it in some of the preparations only work if you are in that projection. So we're kind of, in terms of the vector tiles, we're kind of stuck with it. That being said, we have published a beta version of the 5 foot contours. So it's every 5 feet as opposed to every foot. That is a beta for testing and kind of use. Like, if people still feel that it's useful, then we can kind of do some further refinements and then have them just be the data set for the 5 foot. The performance is on the 5 foot is still, not quite as fast and snappy as the vector tile cache, but it is more than functional enough for most purposes, and it will get faster as more people use it. So it's kind of one of those things. But the advantage there is that they are queryable. You can choose to only see every 10th foot or every 100th foot, and things like that. And you can remix and extract and do all of those wonderful things that we like to do with GIS services. We have also been working on a 1 foot feature service, and we have one. It is on AGOL, and I would classify it as tantalizingly close to functional. It's still, you have to be patient with the service. It does take some time to load, especially when you move on initial load and when you move extents. It is a little pokey, but once it loads, it's all there and it looks fantastic. So we have those. The 5 foots will soon be on the geodata portal, and the 1 foots, we have been working on them, but I guess I'll kind of show what we have going on here. So the images on the left and in the center are the 1 foot vector tile contour data set, a screenshot of them so you can kind of see what they look like. As you can see, the symbology works really well. The labeling works really well. They are fantastic. The 5 foots, once again, you zoom out far enough, it also looks really, really good. My question for the council is, with all of this, and I would really like to hear either affirmation or feedback or just kind of direction, is we've been struggling with both the vector tile and the feature class. We still strongly believe that the feature class, the 1 foot feature class, should be a data set that we should produce, especially the fact that we can make it on, make it queryable and all of those wonderful things that people want. But as you know, with 20 million features, we've been breaking AGOL outside of the stuff that happened today with this. We still feel that we're really close, and we have been really pushing Esri to kind of figure out like what things can we do, what things can they do to make this functional. And so the question here to the council that I would like affirmation or direct feedback on is, should we continue to pursue the 1 foot contours? I feel that they're worth it, but I need to hear from you guys as to whether you guys think this is worth to continue spending our time on.
I would say that the 1 foot are still worth spending the time on. I know when we get consultants or towns asking for things, they always want 1 foot contours. So I would say keep plugging away at it. If it gets to work, then that'd be great.
Thank
I
you.
would also agree. Our engineering department asks for the 1 foot contours. It's one of the most important things to them on their internal GIS viewer.
Okay.
I'll
I'll
pipe in.
plus one on that too.
Oh, Eric. Okay, good. I
I-
wanted to shout out to Leah for all this work because as someone who's tried to deal with statewide contours, it is really, really a lot. So great job, Leah. I think hopefully she's on. I second the 1 foot contours, but what I do for viewers, the vector tiles are great and fast and super, they look awesome. So that really meets the needs for a lot of what I do, just pushing out for public viewing.
Yeah. The other thing I will say is, if someone needs the 1 foots, they are available through the CT Eco website as a download. Those are there. We just want to, in the interest of making them more functional in that kind of web methodology that we are all kind of moving towards or being encouraged to move forwards to. We just wanted to make sure that we could publish it as a feature service so that people could interact with them and query them and extract them and do all of the things. So what I'm hearing from the council members that have chimed in is that keep trying. Let's see if we can get them to be publishable. And based on my conversations with both Esri and Dewberry and others, if we can get this to work as a feature class, we will likely be one of the first to get a data set of this size to work as a feature class. So there's also that. But once again, just to kind of reiterate, I can't thank Leah enough for her hard work and all of the head banging and table flipping involved with working with these contours. And we've broken our behemoth of a server to the point that our IT is completely reinstalling the operating system because we weren't getting our full optimization out of it. So we've been pushing the technology hard with this data set, and it's kind of one of those things where, in theory, you're just like, yeah, 1 foot contours with like really, really high resolution LiDAR behind it sounds great and it sounds doable with modern computing, but the reality is it's still kind of tough. It's just when the output looks easy to use, a lot of that kind of strife and difficulty is a little bit lost in the weeds. And I just want to make sure that we call that out, that a tremendous amount of work went into making these function and look the way they look. And I would also like to shout out the conversations that we had with the folks from Esri, specifically Arthur Crawford. We kind of posed a few questions and he just totally, figured out how to publish our contours and publish them and then wrote the instructions in the item description for us. So that help was also massively invaluable. So I just wanted to kind of call both of those things out. So I guess we have our direction from the council. I appreciate all of the discussion, and we will keep trying. And that is probably on the top of my to-do list to bug Esri about at UC. So now we hand it off to Ashley and Leah to talk about the parcel and camera updates and other topics.
You
I
can hit
think that,
next.
yeah, I have the first slide. Okay. So just want to give a quick update on the collection for 2025. So far, every cog has or is currently submitting data for this year's collection. We have so far processed 8 of the 9 cogs. So far, we're seeing pretty consistent numbers from last year's collection. For the parcels, we have 154 submissions with 117 of those submissions complying with the parcel schema we implemented last year. Just to cite last year's numbers, we had 154 submissions and 120 complying with the schema. And for the CAMA, we are also going into year 2 of implementing the suppression field. And out of the 164 CAMA submissions we received so far, we have 140 complying compared to last year's 169 with 141 complying. And we're still getting submissions. So we're hoping that that number rises.
Yeah, on that note, our deadline for the Council of Governments to review the data is July 1st, so we still have some time to receive the rest of the data. We've used a new GIS data submission portal that we've created, and within that, there's a parcel submission site with the survey. In the survey, the metadata survey, you collect, all that needy, nice information from both the CAMA and the parcel data set. And also there's the ability to upload data within that survey as well, which we wanted to use that way to simplify it, because it used to be that we have both the metadata survey separated from the files. So the file has to be submitted to the OneDrive. So now we do it all simplified through that portal. But, we had some hiccups with that survey. The survey depends on the last year's data set to auto-populate for each town when you're submitted for each town. And we did this, to simplify the process for everyone. But we encountered the issue with S3 that the survey 123 kept breaking. So at some point at the end, we had to switch it up to the same mode to submit files directly to us via email and OneDrive. So just a note on the survey 123 potential of breaking up, especially when you have dependencies to other files. And we tried to figure out with S3, they said that there was an error with the XML file that was, feeding the auto-populate, but we were never able to figure out. So anyway, okay, I got a note there. So I think that was all regarding the parcel camera collection. So now the GIS office with Emily Wilson presented at the 81st Annual School of Connecticut Assessors by the Connecticut Association of Connecticut Assessors, CA, Association of Assessors. And I missed the O, so if somebody can post it there. And it was a great conversation. It was formatted in a way of a workshop. And then after us, Brett Flodine from Harvard and Rich Gallagher from Manchester also presented. So it was a really great sort of workshop session. We heard a lot of people. I think we asked for a raise of hands, some people that were using GIS, and it seemed like most of the group understood or used GIS in some form or another. The degrees varied. From what we talked to, there was people that were there because they were the GIS person for that off within the town. For others was the assessor that looks at the viewer. So we understood a little bit better about the uses of our products include especially most importantly the imagery. But we also had the opportunity to present on the larger sort of state parcel and KIAMA program. Obviously, they participate, towns and assessors participate in a way submitting the KIAMA export that we received, but we were able to sort of go more in detail about what we're seeing when we look at this data at the statewide level. And people were very excited, and there were conversation, I think, for the group highlight on specific fields that are within the existing schema, especially the one that is a state use code. This is a code that is determined by OPM. It's an abstract coding system, and this helps identifying each parcel as a type, basically, of a category, residential, commercial, and all that. Right now, the usage of that state use field, it's all over the place. It's not stable. There's all sorts of combinations. I think I found a 5,000 unique combinations of state, the code, and the description. So, the assessors are using it differently, but we were able to bring this to the top of assessors' mind, and this discussion is going to continue. And I'm very excited that we were able to have this first sort of introduction talk with the assessors, because I think this is going to help us align a little bit more our efforts towards the standardization of the schema for the KIAMA, and now as we're working towards more within those fields, how can we better them and make them more useful. I mean, I gave them examples from the green band, deep, all the sort of things that are that would be good to have at least start working within those fields, and we can stabilize them across the state. So that was that. That's why I wanted to highlight it. I think it's important, and if anybody on the council would like to sort of have a more discussion sort of in terms of strategizing for more conversations with the assessors, just let me know, because I know parcel KIAMA is a large important topic. So I think that's that's all there. So next,
One thing I'd like to add about this particular topic is that for the parcel and camera collection working group, we were able to get the current president of CAAO to join that group and to help us in our efforts to further clean up and develop the state use land use categories. So we feel that was like a really big win, and that's going to really help to kind of make this a much more usable data set, if you will.
Yes. So next, please. Okay, we're next. Okay, I was just looking at the other. So another thing that I wanted to talk about, this is all about location. We're going to the point level now. Statewide addressing updates. So we are thinking a lot about address, and when we're having a lot of conversations, well, this one materialized as a work with the Yukon Master Data Science Applied Capstone. And they're directed by, I forgot professor's last name, Jeremy Tilbon. Yes. Teitelbaum. And these are two teams of students, master students that are working. And when we asked them, we had this idea for a while in the works. It takes a lot of time within the GIS office to sort of start experimenting on that. So we sort of said, this is a great time to have master students that are very motivated to work on this. So they're working in designing and testing the methodology. So we can have a methodology to maintain a master address data set that is derived from distant sources, namely internet providers, electric distribution companies. We have some agency resources. We have obviously our START data set, which is E911. And our parcel data as well that provides addresses. So in that way, it's sort of like that methodology that once we have clear out, once we evaluate all these data sets, we can derive a weighting system to understand sort of which data set provides a better address quality, and then a confidence interval in a classification method towards each address, meaning that you would cycle through them, and if you see them appearing through all the across all the data sets in in a great formatting, then we can consider that data as the address as valid. Or if it has some issues, whether it be conflicting spellings or whatnot, we will that's a thing that has to be defined still. Well, we can see needs review or invalid, whether it says 1, 2, 3 Maine, Hartford, no zip code, that's invalid. So those kind of things are the things that we're thinking through with the two teams. So the two teams are working independently. So there's going to be basically two methodologies, but from what I'm seeing, they look pretty close to each other. This is very exciting because it takes some time that we would take experimenting and looking at this large data sets. We're talking about 1.9 million stuff or more. So this is going to we've been through the first part, like you see in the timeline there, mid-June. We had the EDA milestone. We saw some details about the data, not quite. So I asked them for more detail, thinking about more spatially about how addresses are looking per town or per zip code, quality of address. So all these kind of nice EDA approaches. And now we're gonna have a second check-in, and by the end of July, we should have some results on that methodology. So that's very exciting. So if you have any suggestions on address data, just let me know, and I'll pass it on. And in that note, I just wanted to mention as well that we just updated the GIS office page. Is that what you? Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Actually, I
just
wanted to chime in one more thing on the addresses.
Okay.
So yesterday, one of those things that happened after we got the agenda and made the PowerPoint. And yesterday we had a conversation with the Secretary of State's office as to their migration to their new voter registration management system. So as it turns out, their new voter registration management system is a truly GIS-based system that is based on address points and polygon geometries for all of the voting districts. So they have been working with someone at UConn named Greg Johnson, I believe, to develop both the comprehensive list of addresses of all residential addresses that they see in their lists of registered voters, and maintaining those, and then also to create the polygons for all of the voting districts so that when they're doing their elections management, they can kind of keep track of that a lot better. They have indicated that they're willing to both share both of those data sets with us in a public way. So that creates for us a really good opportunity to have a baked in validation mechanism for every residential address in the state. They have hand validated 1.6 million residential addresses. And basically when what they have left over that still needs to be verified or they think is in error is about 11,000. So they've gone through a huge pile of data, and they've been able to kind of, in the aggregate, really come up with what we are tentatively calling a semi-authoritative data set of every residential address in the state, which is kind of amazing. So that really kind of shortcuts a lot of the efforts that we have been working on and trying to understand the challenges associated with the maintenance of addresses and addressing. So our hope is to kind of use that as a kind of a weighted, kind of trusted data set that we can use then to ensure that we validate all of the commercial and industrial and non-residential addresses, to create a true composite master address data set that we can then create derivatives of for various other uses, like emergency services, economic development, public health, and create a really trustworthy and complete free to use geocoder for everyone. So that was a conversation that happened yesterday, and so we are still going to be working with them and working a little bit closer with the Secretary of the State's office to make sure that we can kind of move this forward and be able to leverage the collective effort of every registrar or voter in the state to help check addresses. So, Ashley, back to you.
Yeah, right. And that's also, seeing larger term planning as well as census LUCA, what they call the LUCA, the local update of census addresses. Too, the better our master address data set, the better we can do like a bulk submission to them. They rely on towns to submit data for the counting, but if we can assist or have all this data in one single place, I think it will help with that update that the census requests. So this is good progress. And what I was going to say is that we also updated the GIS office main page. It's a little cleaner. It has the main sort of links to all sort of different pages, and I put a GIF there or a GIF. I still don't know. I still haven't chosen of the legislative map, so I'll share with everybody. And then in there's going to be an update to the guidance. We created a GIF graphical. Yeah. So anyway, what I was saying is that there's an additional site that is guidance documents. We didn't have that before, so we created that. We only have one document. So I think I don't know who's gonna talk about the next one, but right now but you'll see more in that link, and I'll share it in a second. Oh yeah, Alfredo put it there.
I think Sarah is up to talk about the Geodata portal publishing guidelines.
Yeah, so on that site that Ashley was talking about, you'll see the newly published Geodata portal publishing guidelines. And so we talked about this document at the last meeting and gave the council a chance to review the draft and provide any feedback that they had. Just as a refresher, the purpose of this document is to give guidance to any agencies and partners who publish GIS data to the GIS portal. And it covers how to participate in the Geodata portal, the required metadata, coordinate systems, things like data maintenance and data retirement, how to tag your data sets appropriately and use the categorization that we have listed for the clearinghouse site, and a bunch of other important topics. So this document is now finalized and it's publicly available on this site. There's a link I think this slide links to that guidance page, and I think it's in the chat now. But feel free to take a look, let us know if you have additional feedback, and you can reference it as needed. And then also with these guidelines now published and in place, we're going to plan to do an audit on all the data sets, probably this year sometime. So all the data that's currently published on the Geodata portal, including our own data, just to make sure everything aligns with these new guidelines in terms of information that's available and metadata and tags and all the things like that. So we'll reach out to people and agencies later on when the time comes, once we start doing that.
All right. Before we get to our final topic of discussion, does anybody have any questions on the things that were discussed thus far from Ashley, Leah, and Sarah? All right. So finally, another bit of governance documents. So Emily Wilson has put her proverbial head down and kind of did a lot of editing to the Geospatial Clearinghouse Working Group recommendations document. It is a really good document. I believe we shared it with the working group for initial review. We will be sharing this with this group later ahead of the August meeting so that you guys can review it and then give you some time so that you guys will have some time to kind of really fully dig into it and what it says and make sure that you agree or disagree or can talk through all of the issues. Then we will plan to adopt the document in the October meeting, which is, I believe, the last one for the year. So that way we can kind of at least be able to kind of get 2 to 3 guidance documents fully kind of run through this year, which is part of our goal. So as you can see, some of the topics that were kind of in here that were discussed are, digital expend, what platform to use, download and services, data integration, etc. We did have some interesting information in there about accessibility, which is becoming a hotter and hotter topic because of the upcoming WGAC compliance requirement, I believe, next year. So that is becoming quite the topic of discussion amongst GIS offices across the nation. So I will leave it to Emily to tell you more about this document.
Yeah, sure. So it's been sitting in draft format for an embarrassingly long time for all the work that the working group put in. That I should have put their names out here, but we'll do that in the future. Where, if you recall, we as a team visited every other state geospatial clearinghouse and then some large cities to look for things we liked and things that we didn't think worked as well. So these topics and the recommendations under them are based largely on our experience visiting those places. So the way this was written, it's a little bit upside down because we already have a geodata portal, and the geodata portal was created using a lot of the things that we had found. We just hadn't written into a nice, clean document. So the document itself is somewhat generic, but where there's been significant progress on a certain topic, I did note it in there. And there's also a little section under each for things we liked and found in other places. And the document's really long, but 16 pages of its actual recommendations. The rest is a really big appendix with a lot of screenshots of those particular sites. So if you do get to the point of opening it, don't be too overwhelmed. And I also tried to put the recommendations themselves under a bullet versus background information. So hopefully it's fairly clear. The working group is having some time now to review it, but then we look forward to the council. I don't think there's anything groundbreaking. It's just kind of putting it all in one place with some things to strive towards. Some will be easy, some not so much. So look forward to getting this over the finish line finally. I'm happy to take any questions or recommendations at this point. I know most people here haven't seen it yet.
Yeah. Any questions on that? And at this point, we can open it up for public comment as well. So if anyone that's not a council member has a question or comment or just something to say, please feel free to kind of speak up now. Well, thank you so much for joining us this day. We appreciate you guys listening to all of the things that we're up to and weighing in on those things. We will be sure to make sure that we continue working on the contours. Yes, Eric, you have something to say?
I just wanted to ask Ashley to either stay on the meeting or call me after I have a parcel question for the on the collection stuff. That's it.
You got it.
All right. Thank you.
All right. So thank you all. Have a good day. And we will see you all in August. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Take care. Bye.